Happy Friday, historians! This video is going to review and also refresh our memories about how to write a text-dependent question response. So this is going to be like a writing focused video, so just track the things that you notice me doing. So I've already coded the text that I was supposed to read, and I coded the question. For this pretend scenario, I have the question, how did farming benefit early humans? Okay, so I circled that I need to focus on the benefits that came from farming. When I read the text, I noticed that it said in the first sentence that people before farming, they were really dependent on the natural food supply. They had to frequently move from place to place because if they stayed in one area, they would eat up all the food there and then they would probably die of starvation. So I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe a benefit of farming is that they were actually able to have more control over their food, and so they could that could help them in lots of ways. So here's this response that I've drafted so far. The first sentence is my answer to the question. This is my claim. So I wrote, farming benefited early humans by, and I chose the word empowering, which means to give them power. So farming benefited early humans by empowering them to develop their technology and achievements. This is something that came from my own thinking. It's not something that I found in the text right above me. So I had to I had to combine my background knowledge and my own, and the evidence that was there. Then I had to give my audience a little bit of background information about how farming could have done that. So I need to ask myself, what does my audience, my readers, what do they need to know about life before farming that will help them understand the point I'm trying to make? So I came up with this for my context sentence. Before farming was created, the first people were dependent on animal herds for their food and thus couldn't build civilizations in one location. Okay, so that's what my reader needs to know in order to understand my original claim. All right, I have my claim, I have my context. Now I should give them some evidence to back up my argument. I use the stem an example of. So here's my evidence sentence. An example of how farming helped early humans advance is from Walter Wallbank's text, Past and Present, when he writes, so long as they relied on foraging, hunting, fishing, and trapping, they were dependent on the natural food supply. So whatever grew in the world in a given area to keep from starving. And this comes from document 1. I want you to notice that in this piece of evidence, I've included the author's name. I've also included the title of the text. And at the end, I put the document number that you see up in the corner at the end of the evidence piece. I chose a piece of evidence that really emphasizes that the first people before farming, they were not able to stay in one place. They were really dependent on location because they only had the food that was naturally growing there. So now I'm really going to explain how farming was so much better than this. And so here's my interpretation sentences doing that. Because farming allowed people to not be so dependent on the natural food supply and gave them this is a vocab word, gave them a surplus. That's when you have more than what you need. So gave them a surplus of food. They could then focus their energy on other areas, such as technology or art. By creating more technology and art, humans' lives could be easier and more enjoyable. Now, the first text doesn't talk about technology or art. This is totally, again, my thinking of well, okay, they have this surplus of food, so how could that help them? And that's my thinking. It could help them because now they get to actually do things they like and they get to create stuff. My last sentence is just my little conclusion where I'm trying to end my paragraph. So I wrote, overall, farming is one of the main reasons why early humans were able to develop and ultimately improve their lives. So it's just a quick little summary type gist sentence where I finish my ideas and bring it all together. you'll notice I have a claim, I have a context sentence, I have one piece of evidence, I have two interpretation sentences, right? The first one is explaining my evidence. The second one's really, really proving my point that, this was beneficial, because that's the question I'm supposed to ask. And then my conclusion sentence just summarizes everything.